Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Parliamentary Reporter. This is English shorthand dictation exercise number 28. The dictation speed is 120 words per minute. Ready? Start. The House of Parliament of India, which contains the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, is located in New Delhi. It was designed by the British architects Sir Edwin Lutyens and Sir Herbert Baker in 1913 as part of their wider mandate to construct a new administrative capital city for British India. It is said that the circular structure of an 11th century Hindu temple in Madhya Pradesh may have inspired the design of the building. Construction of the Parliament House began in 1921 and it was completed in 1927. The opening ceremony of the Parliament House, which then housed the Imperial Legislative Council, was performed on 18th January 1927 by Lord Irwin, the then Viceroy of India. On the very next day, the third session of Central Legislative Assembly was held in this house. 2 floors were added to the structure in 1956 due to a demand for more space. The Parliament Museum, opened in 2006, stands next to the Parliament House in the building of the Parliamentary Library. The shape of the building of Parliament is circular, at the center of which is the central chamber, and surrounding this are the semicircular halls that were constructed for the sessions of the Chamber of Princes, the State Council, and the Central Legislative Assembly. The Chamber of Princes is now used as the Library Hall. The State Council is now used for the Rajya Sabha, and the Central Legislative Assembly is now used for the Lok Sabha. The building is surrounded by large gardens and the perimeter is fenced off by sandstone railings. A new Parliament building may replace the existing complex. The new building is being considered on account of the stability concerns regarding the current complex. A committee to suggest several alternatives to the current building was set up by the ex-Speaker Meera Kumar. The present building, which is an 85-year-old structure, suffers from inadequacy of space to house members and their staff and is thought to suffer from structural issues. The building also needs to be protected because of its heritage. In August 2019, the Vice President and the Chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, Shri Venkaiah Naidu, proposed to Prime Minister Modi to have a new building for the Parliament. In January 2020, Lok Sabha Speaker Shri Om Birla announced that Parliament will be holding its sessions in a new building in 2022 when the country would be celebrating its 75th Independence Day. Renovation of Central Vista from Rashtrapati Bhavan to India Gate is also underway. Lok Sabha chamber is expected to have increased seating capacity to accommodate more members as number of MPs may increase with India's population. Lok Sabha may need to have 848 members by 2026. New complex will be able to house 900 Lok Sabha MPs and 1,350 members in total. According to the architect in charge of the redesign of the Central Vista, the new complex is likely to have a triangular shape. It will be built next to the existing complex and will be much bigger than former one. North and South blocks, which house ministries, will be converted into museums, and relocation of Prime Minister's office and ministries and redesign of Rajpath will take place. Last week, Australia announced that it will now force technology giants such as Facebook and Google to pay new companies for using content. The government of Australia said that this was meant to ensure a level playing field, and the announcement came after an 18 months investigation into the power of these digital platforms by the country's Competition and Consumer Commission. Earlier this month, France's top competition authority asked Google to negotiate with media companies, including both publishers and agencies, for using snippets on its search engine and news aggregator and pay them proper remuneration. Both Australia and France are right. For too long, there has been an unfair ecosystem that has been built around the digital news landscape. Media organizations invest tremendous resources such as personnel, editorial gatekeeping, overhead costs, and distribution. Big digital intermediaries such as Facebook and Google take their content and push it on their platforms. But operating under ambiguous regimes, they pretend not to be media companies. This means they neither have the legal accountability that media organizations have, nor do they incur the same levels of expenditure. But they monopolize the revenue that streams into the digital news world. This has made several genuine media organizations unviable, forcing them to scale down their operations or even close down. This hits not just particular companies but hurts democracy and the right of citizens to be informed. This crisis has become even more acute given the economic slowdown after the coronavirus pandemic. India is not immune from either the trends in the digital news world or the slowdown. Media companies now face additional challenges. For traditional print platforms, circulation has dipped because of unfounded fears about the possibility of the infection spreading through newspapers. Revenue is hit due to the curtailment of advertisement expenditure by private companies as well as the government. In this backdrop, it is time for the government to institute clearer rules for intermediaries. It is time to get Facebook and Google to meet their legal obligations. It is no surprise that there is a proliferation of fake news on some of these platforms in the absence of stronger accountability rules. It is also time to get them to pay the rightful share of compensation to those platforms whose content they use and leverage to build their own audience and profits. India must carefully consider other global examples and put a stop to the reckless and unfair trade practices adopted by digital intermediaries. It is indeed time for a level playing field, not just to help India, but also to preserve democracy and keep up the news gathering mechanisms that are so essential to keeping citizens informed. On 21st April, the price of Texas oil futures fell below $0 per barrel. In theory, an empty barrel of crude oil was worth more than a full one. This was a symbolic milestone which was a consequence of a lack of storage and quarter end fire sales rather than a stable market situation. Oil price futures have recovered, but only to their still absurdly low band of $20 to $25 per barrel. Brent crude price, which is the relevant one for India, continues to stay around $20. All of this reflects the enormous mismatch between global supply and demand. There was already a surplus of oil before the coronavirus pandemic. After the outbreak and the continuing economic retrenchment, the world is awash with black gold. The recent 15 million barrel oil production cuts announced by various countries proved toothless in the face of a 30 million barrel drop in demand. The brief fall of Texas oil prices into negative was a headline catching symptom of the current problem of surplus. There have been other signs, such as the record 160 million barrels of oil stored on stationary tankers, and countries such as Nigeria being unable to sell sweet light crude at even $11. Natural gas prices have followed a slippery slope as well. As one of the world's largest importers and a country repeatedly brought to its knees by crude spikes, India has always been happy when prices have crashed, but it has moved beyond the days when it looked at oil solely in terms of how much foreign exchange it could save. Today, it should look at how it can quickly enhance its strategic reserves to benefit from the falling price. For instance, China is doing just that. It should assure future supplies. This is a good time to enter into long-term contracts. Finally, it should also judge how the present oil crisis will if affect, for better or for worse, its long-term energy strategy. New Delhi should keep a firm eye on its long-standing goals of promoting solar and wind energy, shifting more baseload power to natural gas, and shutting its most polluting coal-fired power plants. But it is unlikely that even the most cost-effective of these will be able to match oil prices in the short and maybe even medium term.